Now, I am really excited to have this next guest on, Kevin Baumgart. Back when we were maybe 4 people or so, I got connected with Kevin to be able to help us at Printavo with sales. And honestly, we didn't know what we didn't know about sales. We had 1 or 2 sales reps at the time. And I said, look, I've done everything I possibly know to help convey and train them and make them better sales reps and close more deals. But what am I missing? And Kevin spent so much time with our team getting training decks and materials and all this stuff to a point where I said, holy crap, I'm sure our customers have the exact same problem. You guys have the exact same problem of, well, how do we get more efficient? How do we hire our first sales rep? How do we train our second or third sales rep and so on? Kevin Baumgart has worked with so many different shops now. That was 3-4 years ago to be able to help scale their business as well. So very excited to be able to have him. Kevin Baumgart from Set Sales.
Again, thank you, Bruce. That was awesome. Ross, thank you for this Print Hustler hangover. That was awesome. I'm excited to be here. This is my 3rd Print Hustlers presentation. As Bruce mentioned, I've been in the industry now for like 5 years, have helped dozens of shops, and I think I can call myself a print nerd now. I love the space. I love the industry. I love all you crazy entrepreneurs. It's been a blast. So what I'm going to talk about today is essentially what the work I do with shops, the strategies and the things that we implement. What I get asked about every day are some of the topics that we're going to discuss. The structure of this room is such that I think we can make it pretty interactive. So if you all want to dive deeper on a topic, I want this to be beneficial time for you all. So please don't hesitate to interject, ask questions. We'll make this interactive. All right, I'm going to kick this off with this incredibly bold statement that we are really good at selling. What do you guys think? So we're really good at selling. We have built incredible businesses purely off of organic growth, word of mouth, customer referrals. It's crazy. You all have built incredible businesses, sometimes multi-million dollars off of pure organic growth. You don't see this in many industries. This is crazy. Maybe saying that we're good at selling is a little too much. Maybe we're good at order taking. Maybe we're good at when someone raises their hand and says, "Hey, I want to buy from you." We're good at fulfilling those orders and executing that. I would also say that we're really bad at selling. Agree? Especially if you think about going out and having cold outreach, going out and finding net new business, and spending the time to really proactively grow revenue and drive net new business and find new customers. That's really not what we've done historically as shops. And when I talk to shops, it's usually that reason and that strategy on why we engage is they want to grow the revenue. They want to hit targets. They want to go out and proactively find new business in markets that they want to do business in. And we're realizing that it's not just inbound. We got to really drive outbound. So here are some of the topics that I want to discuss today. Again, that come up often in these conversations. We're going to kick it off with people. So recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training, developing, the cornerstone of like, let's figure out, do we need to recruit, hire salespeople or train salespeople that we have on staff? We'll talk about the people side. We'll then dig into KPIs. In my opinion, a cornerstone of any sales org, we got to have the right data and metrics to follow, and KPIs are a super critical component. Compensation, I get asked often, how do we comp salespeople? I'm not going to give you a comp plan, but I'll talk about some best practices and what we typically will build for shops on a compensation front. We will then talk really high level on outreach, like if we are now going to go out and find new business and find customers, what's that strategy and approach? And we'll end with a really, really short high level overview of sales process and sales scripting. Is there anything that is not on this list that you were hoping that I was going to cover? Okay. All right. Let's kick it off with people. So in my opinion, like sales hiring, recruiting, training, onboarding, this is like the biggest blocker for most shops to go out and proactively sell. We've got our inside salespeople that are taking inbound leads. We've got our customer success folks that are managing that as well. They're usually at capacity, right? They're running hard. They're running crazy all over the shop. in order to do this, in order to go out and proactively sell in shops, we typically would have to go out and recruit and hire salespeople. And this is usually the biggest blocker. It's usually the first block because it's not easy. We've never done it. It's hard. Some of us haven't done it. We have to really, really commit to this if we're going to do it. You all know, especially in the hiring environment today, it's not easy to hire anyone. Salespeople, I think, are even harder to hire. So if you are going to go out and build this proactive outbound sales engine, we have to really commit to this and push that we're going to grow it. And then if we do it, we got to make sure that we set them up for success. So it's not just go out and find them. It's onboard, it's develop, it's train, it's manage effectively. And we'll break down each of those buckets, starting with hiring. Many of you have built amazing teams and have a good structured approach to bringing on and recruiting talent. What I've found is that when you're hiring salespeople, it's even harder to make sure that we're recruiting and hiring and finding that right person. Even mediocre salespeople, I found, are really good at selling themselves. So like they might not be that great of a salesperson, but they know themselves better than anything and they can sell themselves. So we gotta set a structured process and approach to make sure that we are bringing on the right talent. What I'll typically do when we build this out for shops, and by the way, I also run sales organizations for software companies. That's my day job. This is fun stuff that I get to do on the side. So I've probably interviewed thousands of salespeople, and without a structured hiring process, there's no way that I can build a team. And by structured hiring process, I mean like the steps and stages that we go through before we bring on that talent. So from an initial pre-screen survey, like I'm emailing them a survey after they apply with a few questions, then we're doing a structured phone interview, then we're doing a in-person usually or Zoom resume review interview, then we're doing a behavioral or situational based interview, then we're doing a job assessment, job fit profile or personality profile, and then we're doing heavy reference checks. So in my opinion, like that's par for the course. You have to do that stuff to bring on and hire the right talent. And we've all been there. We've all made bad hiring decisions, right? It's the worst. You spend all this time recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training them, and then you realize that, like, why did I hire this person? This is the worst decision that I could have made. We've all been there. So to not get to that level, we need to put structure and effort into the whole hiring process. Is anyone doing any of these steps to make sure that they're bringing on top talent? It's important, right? It's critical to make sure that we're like walking through each step, each stage, ensuring that we've got the right folks and the right people. And as business owners, as leaders in the business, in my opinion, there's no more important decision that you can make for your organization. Who you put on your payroll, that is the most critical decision that you can make. Let's make sure that we have those right folks. It's interesting, like salespeople are usually a product of their environment. So look at where they came from. If they came from big businesses with marketing organizations and sales enablement materials and collateral and a name recognition, are they going to be successful in a sales organization that, like ours, that doesn't maybe have any of that stuff, right? So look at what they've done in the past. Look at where they've been successful. We need people that can execute, that can go out, hit the ground running, not have to have their hand held, that have that intrinsic motivation and entrepreneurial nature to go out and close business and run it. What do you guys think about that last question? Do you think they need to have shop experience?
No.
Nope. Any yeses?
Yeah.
I think they need a little bit of understanding.
Basic knowledge? Okay, why?
It's an understanding of what people are dealing with in the inside before you make the promises.
Like knowing the inside of the business?
What can and
Somewhat,
can't be done.
yeah.
They sell shit that we can't print.
That never happens, right? Yeah.
I think knowledge of print can be acquired, but the personality or the type of person that sells it is not something that is acquired. It's who they are.
Sure.
Training, you can train somebody.
Yes.
Our best staff, and they're here with us, need them to have to job training.
Okay.
Hire an attitude, and they kill it.
Great.
Hire an attitude and internal locus of control.
Aptitude.
Everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah, I love that. Jason said internal locus of control, meaning that stuff that happens to me is from my doing, not from external sources. Like if you've asked people why they failed in other jobs or why they left jobs, if they're saying they, them, this, they did this, not an internal locus of control, but if they say, you know, I, me, that's internal. Yeah, all good points. I don't know if I have the right answer to this, but I get asked often, you know, should we look for people that have print shop experience? My gut tells me like we can train them on it. Yes, our business is sophisticated in nature, but if we can give them good training and have them shadow and have them learn about what we do day in, day out, that shouldn't take much time, and we should give them the groundwork of what a shop is like. But do it well so that they're not selling things that we can't produce. Okay, before I go on, yeah, please.
How do you recommend evaluating for culture, like in this process?
Yeah, culture's tough. What we do is usually look at and have multiple people interview them and just try to gauge an understanding and link back to the values of the business. So what's our mission, vision, values? Ask them questions around that. How do they feel about it? But culture is a soft one, right? Like you can't, like behaviors like empathy or intrinsic motivation or internal locus of control. Those are things that you can ask behavioral or situational based questions on. Tell me a time when, give me an example of when empathy was important or when you had to intrinsically motivate yourself to accomplish something. The culture piece is a little bit different. So what I've done is have to get as many people involved in the process as possible to give thoughts and insight as to, are they a good culture fit? Do they fit in with our organization? Do you think they'll live by the values that we've set in the business? Any other hiring-based questions before we jump to onboarding? Okay. So again, a lot of us haven't hired and recruited salespeople, but we also haven't onboarded them. This is a challenging component as well. My recommendation is the first 3 weeks, there should be no unknowns. It should be incredibly structured. Their calendar, their day, from morning until night should have, or whatever they start the day to whenever they end the day, should have, here's what we're going to accomplish, here's what we're going to do together, here's who you are going to shadow, here's what you're going to research, here's what we're going to look into, to help all of that unknown, go out the window and really help them focus on just learning the business and growing into the role. I've also found it incredibly effective to build out more broadly a 90-day plan. This is less scripted out, but this is more of what do we want this person to accomplish and overcome and know and hit in the first 90 days of employment. I'll typically break this down into like major objectives, like they should have some customer conversations, they should build some targeting lists, they should go out and make some actual cold calls and start to telemarket, as well as like processes and methods internally that they need to hone and understand. They need to understand the production environment. They need to understand how we quote jobs. But giving a templated like 90-day plan, super critical. However, it can't be Kevin's plan that I give to my salesperson. It has to be their plan that they own, that they want to accomplish, that they want to execute. So what I typically will do is build out that plan. I'll build out, here's a template of the 90 days, but I'll have blanks. And I'll have open statements for them to fill in. And it's, again, we communicate, this is your plan. What do you want to accomplish in 90 days? I give you an idea of what we could do together. Start filling it in. Let's work together. Let's fill this in and let's execute on it. And then also, once they hit their 90th day, we have a celebration. We have a party. They've always been a member of our team, but now they are on board. They've been onboarded into the organization, and we're going to celebrate that time that they spent working hard to learn the business. Please.
At what point do you get feedback from that? Like a week in or 2 weeks in, do you ever have a conversation?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for asking. So the question was, when do we get feedback from them? This is a heavy communication period, right? Especially as we're learning and building this out for the first time. So I want to over communicate. I want to discuss often. I would say in the first month, twice a week, we're checking in on the plan. I mean, you're gonna be interacting with this person a lot, right? When they come on board, they're gonna have a ton of questions. You're gonna want to support them, especially in the first month. You're gonna be interacting multiple times a week, but specifically checking in on the plan, I would say once or twice a week to start with, and then every couple weeks as it goes throughout the rest of that 90-day term. Because you want to, not from maybe a micromanagement perspective, but from a support perspective, you want to work with them and follow up and ensure that they've got what they need to successfully accomplish the plan that you all put together.
During this plan, do you have any kind of revenue goals or any kind of sales, or is it just strictly learning the business?
Yeah, I love the way you're thinking. He's already asking about revenue with this new person 90 days in. Awesome, right?
What point do you set that?
Yeah. I don't know if I have the right answer. I would say that I wouldn't. I don't know if I want to hold them accountable to actually bringing in revenue in the first 90 days. What I think is important is to get them on board and get them trained up and have them be effective 90 days in so that they can go execute. However, if they are comfortable with owning a little bit of a number and you're comfortable in saying, yeah, let's bring a small number in, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Are you giving them any of your current clients to work with, or are you telling them to go get new ones only?
It depends on the role you're hiring for. So this question comes up often: are we hiring people to come in net new and build a new book of business and not touch any current customers, or should they come in and cultivate our current business, try to expand our current clients? I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think it's whatever you want this person to do. If you don't have bandwidth on your current inside sales and customer success team, hiring a salesperson to go in and further develop your clients, if there is expansion opportunities, if we can grow accounts, I think that's a great option. But if we want them to solely go out and build an outbound sales process and find and cultivate net new business, that's what they should be focused on and doing. That being said, early on, having them talk to current customers and getting those motions down and trialing on people that are already doing business with us and already like us, not the worst idea either. Please.
At what point do you maybe decide that they're not going to work out and get rid of them in the first 90 days?
Because that never happens, right? All right. So when do we make the decision to potentially get rid of them? Yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts? First 30. We should know pretty well. I don't know. We all have pretty good instinctive guts, right? Like, we know the business. If they're not working out, like, my recommendation is cut it before it goes deeper, right? Before they become a cancer on the culture. And yeah, if you know, hire fast, fire fast. Hire slow, fire fast. I don't know how that came out. I don't know how that came out of my mouth. Hire really slow, fire fast. Okay. Anything else on this topic?
Any tools that, I know we're trying to hire people, and I know it's probably different in different areas, but what tools does anybody use to find these?
Yeah, it's such a weird hiring environment, and it's everything. You all have seen it. It sucks right now. It's so bad. My recommendation would be go to Google and put in sales jobs in Chicago, or insert your geography. And what shows up in Google results highest is where I would invest money in posting jobs to try to find applicants, because that's how people look for jobs today. Google has taken over the job market, so they're now like flights and hotels. The top box is Google Jobs. You can put money into Google Jobs. Indeed is the largest job board aggregator in the United States. You could look at Indeed. ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, there's a million job boards. I would look at what shows up highest in Google.
So for me personally, and I'm sure I'm not unique to this, I'm my main sales person, and I'm one of the co-owners of the company. Okay. So bringing on our first one, are there certain dynamics that you tend to see work well or not with kind of now sharing that load, from ownership to now bringing on, whether that's shared commissions, whether any dynamics like that I've seen, because I've seen some shops where that's been just a weird, awkward.
Yeah, to give up selling and have someone else step in and run the sales process, essentially.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Or even the one that I saw is another shop local to us. They were, the person was like, all right, well, you're now the owner, so I get all of your commissions and, from back. And they're like, what? And they didn't know how to handle that. So I haven't been in that situation yet, but we are to the point where we're looking for a rep. And so, I don't care. I'm going to take, just if you're growing the business.
Sure. And I think that's the sentiment. So what dynamics between owners and salespeople and how to manage that, again, I think putting the expectations up front of, hey, here's what you're going to be doing. Here's what you're expected. We're going to talk next about KPIs. Well, after compensation, we'll talk about KPIs. Here's what's really critical. If we set forth good metrics, there should be expectations met on the new hires and on the leadership team's structure. as maybe this isn't dynamics, but this might be like core behaviors or core competencies. The successful outbound salespeople that I found that come into print shops are those folks that are entrepreneurial, that have that intrinsic motivation, that can go out without their hand being held and go out and build business. And they've done it before. Like we have to rely on them to just go out and grow it and build it. And I think that dynamic of someone that has that mindset, that thinks like an owner, that can go out and just own it and grow, I think that's really where you're going to find the people that'll fit the best.
I'm kind of curious. So I'm guessing screen printing and decorative apparel. So I'm at Printavo, so software. Hiring salespeople, I typically look for folks who have software sales experience, SaaS experience.
Sure.
I'm guessing screen printers, we sort of talked about it, want some experience, but on the job boards, when people are looking for a sales job in Chicago, a SaaS person is going to look for another SaaS job. Right?
Sure.
So unless you have prior experience in decorated apparel, you're probably not going to look and see that job posting and say, oh, I'm totally going to pivot industries to screen printing. Any recommendations on how to poach people from across industry to pull them in?
Yeah, I mean, it's different, right? Because the amount, like the average selling price of a deal is going to be way different in software than it is from selling some T-shirts, right? So super challenging there. I don't know. Here's what my like pitch is, or like value proposition for a salesperson coming into your shop. It's like they will own their own business. Super entrepreneurial. They get to grow this. Y'all don't have like an outbound sales strategy. This person gets to come in. They get to build it. They get to build process and structure and scripting and messaging, and they get to run it. And if they're successful at it, they can hire and build a team underneath them. I think like that's the core value in what we should be selling. And they get to like learn like direct access to leadership and ownership and learn how a successful small business operates. That's good experience. And that's like a selling point that we can sell to those folks. Compensation, like from a SaaS software, like that's a little bit different. So are you really going to pull in a lot of those folks? It's challenging. Ross, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to kind of piggyback on what he was asking. I owned a shop. Not all of you know my story, but I owned a shop for 10 years in LA before I came over to the equipment side of things. And one of the things I challenged new hires to do wasn't to take that current book of business, but was to find completely new markets. So when you guys are looking at growing or looking to add someone, instead of thinking about what am I giving up, think about what that person is going to add to your business. That way there's not that kind of conflict that you're talking about, because you're not necessarily just giving them something, you're bringing in something new.
Love it.
And I found that works.
Really love it. Love it. Okay. Let's talk about compensation real quick. I've seen a lot of comp plans work and some not work so well. This has to be aligned to your shop. This has to be customized to what you do day in, day out. I don't think there's a lot of right or wrong here. The only wrong that I've seen is like, I still haven't seen a really effective 100% commission-based comp plan. Is anyone having outside salespeople that they're commissioning 100% and they're incredibly effective at helping grow the business? Wow. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah?
We have a couple, but they're not incredibly effective.
So that's what I found. That's what I found is that it's hard to have someone be motivated if they're not comfortable with a base and they're not like, if it depends on the structure. So I'd love to hear your guys' 100% commission structure.
I mean, they bring in what they bring in.
Eat what they kill.
Yeah, and we both make money on it.
Okay.
And there's no...
How do you keep them...
On their own schedule, on their own times. Like, there's really no structure.
Sure.
Those two people work with me.
Okay.
Other than bringing in business.
Yeah, I'm with you. My concern is always like, are they messaging the value of our business effectively? And are they saying the right things? And are they quoting the jobs effectively? And are they selling things that we can actually sell? And like all that stuff, right? So in my experience, I'm glad, like, I haven't heard a lot of people that have done it, so I'm glad to hear that it can be done. But in my experience, it's typically you have to give them a base pay where they're comfortable and they feel bought in and they feel like they're part of the organization.
I would wonder, like, what kind of agreement you have with that person that keeps them, since they're not getting a base pay, so they're only getting commission, what keeps them from going to this shop and trying to get a cheaper price?
Great question. What keeps them from not going elsewhere and selling for other shops?
So mine is basically the relationship, but I went and found someone who was in the apparel industry that sells wholesale apparel to skate shops and breweries and stuff like that. So they already have a relationship with those shops. And then he comes in and says, hey, I can also print shirts for you. I can also do your hats for you. I can also do this for you, as well as selling those other retail brands already to the stores. So he's double dipping. He goes to the store and he double dips. He gets the business from a retail brand and he gets the shop shirts.
And that allows you to feel comfortable enough in that relationship that he's not going to run around to a bunch of different shops and sell. Yeah. Unique relationship. That's awesome that you found somebody like that. Yeah. I don't think that happens often, but awesome that you did.
That's not necessarily a salesperson. That's a manufacturer's rep.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen manufacturer reps in the print shop business. Yeah.
But to her question, why would that sales rep want to go to get a lower price from another printer? Why?
Like, what would motivate them to sell from other? Like, maybe they have different product offerings, or maybe they're a little bit more competitive in hoodies. So, like, if I already know the business and I've already got customers, like, it might be motivated to go elsewhere. Never know. Okay. So I've seen some shops provide a guarantee, right? So salespeople typically, their main motivation is money, or what money brings them. So when they leave a job, they're getting a salary and they're making commissions, so they have a set amount of income that they have. Now they have to step into a new role, start over, and they're not going to earn commissions in the first X amount of months, right? So I've seen some shops, to motivate and bring people in and get them excited about the print industry, give them a guarantee of commission for a few months to make it more comfortable for them to come over. More of an investment from us, but higher likelihood that we're going to find people that are committed and want to really grow and get to that next level. There's a lot of different ways you can spin up variable compensation or commission structures. What I found is, if we do it off of revenue of the job, it's really easy, it's really clean, it's easy for them to calculate, it's easy for us to calculate. If we do it off of margin or net, it's maybe a little bit more relevant to the business and what we're making and what we can pay for them, but it's harder as well for us to measure and manage and report on. I've also seen some people do different percentages for different products. They're commissioning less of a percentage for shirts than they are for hoodies and hats, et cetera. So all of that being said, like, I really feel strongly about making commission plans really easy for them to calculate and easy for us to calculate and report on, and not making this a huge AP, administrative nightmare is pretty critical. It's so challenging. And if we do it off of revenue, it's not that hard. They bring in, $10,000 of jobs and they got a 10% commission, they're making $1,000. Like, it's pretty simple. And what I want to do is motivate that salesperson so that when they do put a quote together, they know right away how much money they're going to make on that quote. And in my opinion, it's going to motivate them way more to go out and effectively close that opportunity, because there's a dollar amount in their pocket that's assigned to each opportunity. If we make it super complicated, it takes them a lot longer to do that, and they might not be as motivated. One other thing, accelerators. Typically, if you're going to put a variable commission-based structure in place, it's going to be on a quota. So they're going to have a monthly or a quarterly quota, and it's almost always a revenue figure, or maybe a margin figure, net figure, however you're structuring commission. To make them not just focus on hitting that number and then holding off until the next month to hit that number and sandbagging deals, I would always put accelerators in place. Keep them motivated to continue to sell and close business month in, month out, every day of the month. And just an idea, like, if they hit X amount of revenue, they're at a 3% revenue commission. If they hit a higher tier, they're at a 4% revenue commission. So it keeps motivating them to continue to bring on and sell more. One of the best pieces of advice that I got on commission structures was, I started at a startup in Chicago. Here was a recruiting and hiring-based software platform. I was the first hire outside of the founders of the team, and I got brought in to build a sales org. And the CEO sat me down and he's like, here's the commission plan that we put together. The only thing that I'll promise you is that we will completely fuck this up. That's the only thing that I'm going to promise you. However, we'll make it right. So we built this comp plan. Here's what we think. Here's how we think it's going to work. But if it's too rich for the company, we'll scale it up. If it's too rich for you, we'll likely scale it back. But I just want to let you know that we're going to work with you and make sure that we make this right. if this is your first hire, I've stolen that language and I've used it for every single salesperson that I've hired. You know, in startups and fast growth businesses, commissions are always going to change. So communication is so critical, always when you're talking about compensation, but I think even more critical for salespeople because they really, really care about compensation. Please.
Is compensation the same on reorders?
Is compensation what?
The same for reorders?
Is compensation the same for reorders? That's a good question. So are we commissioning the same for net new business that they bring in that we would for orders down the road? Again, that's another component of a comp plan. I think there's arguments for both. You know, they brought in that business. We don't get that business without them. They're continuing to grow that organization and grow revenue within that company. Maybe it's the same. However, those reorders are always easier. And what you don't want is that salesperson to just rest on their laurels and kick back and be fat and happy with the commission checks that they're getting in from their customers, which is why communication is key because those comp plans have to change, right? If we're continuing to comp them on recurring orders, at what point do we say, all right, you know, they're at a pretty high threshold of income. Let's figure out how to motivate them to get back into cultivating that new business and growing that out.
But at what point is the reprint business easier than getting the new job and you got to set up the new thing?
We've proven that reprint business is easy to get, right? That's how we've grown the business, right? So at what point do we stop and say, enough's enough, like we're happy with revenue? That's on you and the business and what you want to accomplish, I think, from a revenue number. Yeah.
The struggle that we have is our outside sales reps just go out, get a job, and it keeps coming back in, but then the job's pretty simple to repeat. So they just kind of like send it to the inside sales reps to process the order and things like that. And now the inside sales rep goes, hold on.
This person's get
10% and I'm doing all the work.
Yeah, so that's a tough one, right? If I'm hiring a salesperson and they're getting commissions on those reorders and re-ups, they got to do the work. They got to do the quote. They got to do the fulfillment. They got to do the customer service and success and manage those inbound inquiries. It's got to be them. So we got to set some rules of engagement between outside sales and reorders and inside sales and customer service. There's got to be that set delineation. Please.
How do you handle when you can't handle more work than you sell?
That's a good problem to have. How do we handle more work than we have? Like I've talked to a lot of people yesterday. It sounds like a lot of us are in that boat where we don't have a lot of production capacity. Going out and building a heavy outbound sales organization right now is probably not the right time to do that. It's not always going to be like this, though. We've seen it, right? We saw it in early 2020. We saw it, years past. It's not always as heavy as it is today. Hopefully it is, but I think we're going to have downtime. And again, if you want to go out and proactively grow your business and hit revenue targets, there has to be a defined approach and strategy to go out and sell and close business.
It could be a good time to bring somebody in.
It's a good point.
Just like slowly train them.
If you have the capacity to train and onboard, now might be a good time to bring those individuals in. While we're not going to be relying on them closing business, we've got a little bit more of a structured approach. I like that. We're going to spin through sales KPIs. So a critical part of this is let's make sure if it's current salespeople that we have on our team or net new salespeople, that we're doing everything that we can to give them metrics and numbers to follow, which is super easy in sales. It's a numbers-driven department, and it's really easy to manage this from a quantitative perspective. The way that I look at this is inputs equals outcomes. So inputs meaning outreach, touches, prospecting, that hard work that they do to cultivate business and find it equates in results, equates in outputs. So what I'll typically do, is I'll have weekly one-on-ones with my sales team members, and a KPI scorecard review is always a portion of that one-on-one. And we'll go through all of their numbers, and they'll actually communicate it back to me. Here's my prospecting numbers. Here's my output numbers. Good week, bad week. What are we going to do differently? Type of conversation. And setting these KPIs, in my opinion, it's critical, again, not to micromanage them on a weekly basis, but to help them understand their metrics and help them understand their ratios and what they need to do to be successful in the role. Again, it's all numbers. It's super quantitative. It's pretty easy to understand. They should be able to tell you how much outreach, how many touches, how many prospecting touches does it take to create one net new meeting. How many meetings do I have to run to talk about their business and our business to create one net new opportunity? How many opportunities do I need to bring in and actually close a deal? And then how many closed won opportunities based on our average job size do I need to hit the revenue target we need to hit? They can back all that number in and say, I gotta make at least 30 cold calls, I gotta send 200 targeted emails, and I gotta drop off 10 samples every week in order to hit my revenue target. Like, that's as descriptive as it should be, or prescriptive as it should be. Again, same thing with compensation though. That number is an unknown component until you build it out. So same thing, communication here. We're gonna mess this up. We're gonna build this KPI scorecard. We're gonna tweak it. We're gonna see what the results are. And we're gonna continue to update this and make sure that we've got set KPIs. But without this, there's no way for you and for them to know if they're hitting expectations and they're doing what they need to do to be successful.
How would you recommend, if you have a sales rep that hasn't had this much structure ever, and now you'd like to introduce some of this structure to start like kind of hold them?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, how do we hold them accountable to this if they've never had this type of structure before? Good salespeople have usually had this, because like they can at least tell you what their quota was and what their quota attainment was. Like if you're interviewing someone and they can't tell you what they were accountable for, how their performance was measured, or how they ranked on the team and how they performed, probably not the right fit, number one. But if they can tell you that, like if they haven't had that before and you still think they're the right fit, just communicating up front as to, hey, here's the metrics, here's the goals. I'm not doing this for me to micromanage you and overshadow you. I'm doing this to support you and help you understand your ratios, because you as a salesperson should know how many touches and outreach it's going to take to close a deal.
Yeah, so what tool or CRM tool that you're using to track all this, to know, like right up front?
Yeah, what tools should we use to track this? So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a CRM. A lot of shops that I work with don't. I think it's best if you have one to organize everything and keep notes all in one place and have account information in one place. And it's just like CRMs exist because they're helpful, useful tools. However, I usually don't utilize KPIs or scorecards within the CRM. It's usually just done on like a Google Sheet where they own filling in their numbers. It's a simple Google Sheet. Top is activities, the bottom is outputs, and they're plugging in week by week. Here's the goal, and here's what I hit week over week. And you're reviewing it with them every week, and hopefully there's some sort of checks and balances that they're not just making up those numbers, they're actually doing the calls and stopping into the shops, the businesses. But yeah, I don't think it needs to be very sophisticated. I think it can be as easy as a sheet.
Even like managing all the prospects and all that, how you track, like what have you seen other people use, something that's simple and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I've seen Close.io, I've seen Monday, I've seen HubSpot, I've seen Pipedrive. There's a million CRMs. My recommendation for like sales enablement or CRM tools is that just find something that you think is easy to work with, that your team will utilize, and train them well on it. And then if you are using it, you have to make sure you hold them accountable to completing it. So again, in the weekly one-on-one, I'm not only looking at KPI structure, we're looking at their pipeline and their opportunities within Salesforce and ensuring, or Salesforce is what I use, ensuring whatever CRM tool that they utilize, that it's in there. Salesforce is overkill for shops, in my opinion, unless you've got 10 plus reps. Please.
This is less about the structure of the salesperson, more I guess about their duties, and I know this is going to be a shop-to-shop answer, but I'm interested in, as a smaller shop, we handle all our sales. We just brought in our first salesperson.
Okay.
And I have, so are your salespeople, or the majority of salespeople, seeing this order through from the second they are putting it in the system to the second it goes out the door? Or do most people, are you having your salespeople, like once it goes into production, it's past them, they're not?
Yeah, so it's like the customer life cycle from initial contact all the way through to box in hand. Does the salesperson manage that whole process? So I've seen shops do it both ways. Obviously, what I like better is having the salespeople focus on sales, and then once they close the business and get the order, they're moving on and continuing to cultivate business, because that's what they're good at. That's where their strengths lie, and that's where I want them to spend 100% of their day. Then once the order is in, we have a customer service or success team that's managing post-order follow-up, ensuring that stuff's being delivered on time, and they're managing that. Again, a smaller shop, that might not be possible. So you might have to have that salesperson manage that process throughout. In my experience, I found very few salespeople that are good at going out, telemarketing, cold calling, finding new business, closing deals, and then supporting and administering the customer service aspect of it. There's not many salespeople that can do all of that. So if you have the luxury to split it, I would highly recommend splitting that up.
What do you recommend as far as emails, cold calls versus in-person meetings? What do you think is more effective?
Man, that is a great segue into this next section of sales outreach. So we're going to talk about now, if we do want to build this outbound strategy, what are we going to do to go out and cultivate and find? Like, I don't know, I've read too much on this. It's like everybody says, oh, cold calling's dead. It's not, it works. Like, that's how businesses grow. Like, businesses are there because they have set up very aggressive, structured outbound outreach, both from a marketing and a sales perspective. So like, I mean, you all get cold called all day, every day as business owners, again, because it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't be spinning our wheels. So that outreach structure and strategy is there. To answer your question, like what should we do and how should we grow it? In my opinion, it's got to be a creative mix of outreach. It's got to be emails. It's got to be actually picking up the phone and calling businesses. It's got to be stopping in. I've seen some really successful campaigns of building customized samples and going out and going into our top 25 target customers and dropping off samples to give them an idea of like what we can do for them and how we can help them. A creative mix, I think, is the best approach there. Here's what I haven't seen a lot of shops do is really have a structured focus on outreach and who they're going to reach out to. So almost every shop I talk to is like, yeah, we're trying to get away from schools and churches and nonprofits, and we're trying to do more, businesses and construction companies and contractors where the money is. But there hasn't really been an approach to go find those people. So we should know what markets, what industries we want to target, what size of those businesses. We want to look up contractors that are above 3 million in revenue or above 30 employees that are within 25 miles of our shop. Like that should be the focus. And that should be the people we go out and find and target and build this outreach strategy on. I've had a number of shops use UpLead. UpLead is just a really, really simple like lead generation tool. So you can go into UpLead and you can say, all right, here's the industries that I want to target. Here's the size of the businesses. Here's the geography. And they give you a lead list. Data's pretty cheap. Like my recommendation is just buy it. Don't have a salesperson have to Google and find all this information. Just invest in there's a number of lead gen tools out there to do it. If you do a trial of UpLead and put in Kevin 25, you'll get 25 free leads. Try it, build a list. Just see how it goes and try to put some outreach towards it. This is tough though, right? Like this is the worst part of selling. Going out and cold calling and telemarketing, it's 99% rejection. It's super monotonous. It sucks. It's hard. This is the hardest part of sales. So you gotta plan your day, plan your work, plan that you're gonna do this, and then go execute on that plan. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen. Any questions on outreach?
Kind of question, but something to add to it. I actually hired a salesperson this summer. He already had a full-time job. He was a football coach. So when he came on, what I did was I gave him a budget, to reach out to 10 different schools. And that worked really well for me. There was some of them schools that I was already doing business with, some of them I wasn't, and we supplied each school like 10 hoods for all their coaches. Okay. That turned around and be pretty profitable.
I love it. So put motivation and onus on him, gave him a budget, and said, go find business, go grow it. And yeah, I like that strategy. It's great.
For context, how many dials are your reps making a day at outbound?
Oh, for shops. I don't know. I've seen across the board. It depends on if they're managing new business or if they're cultivating old customers as well. Again, that's the thing that we got to figure out. Like, build a KPI structure, and if it's too much, dial it back, or if it's not enough, dial it up. I would say email campaigns are easy, right? You can automate a lot of that. You don't have to hit compose and type emails. There's a lot of email enablement tools that can allow you to send mass emails effectively. But think about it. Making 20 calls will take you, maybe an hour? So there's no reason why they can't make 100 outbound cold calls a day. I would probably even double that.
Digitizers can hit us up 400 times.
There you go.
Just go hire a digitizer to get your sales.
Y'all are getting hit. Do the same thing that they're doing. I love it. All right, we're going to end on sales process and sales scripting. Think about within your business, all the important components your production environment, how you quote jobs, everything is pretty process driven. And we've seen a lot in the last like year in our industry about like improving SOPs and really dialing in processes within our businesses. Sales is the same way. Like it has to be prescriptive. We have to think about what are the major motions that we follow to be effective, and how do we follow that structured approach. And without giving that new team member that you hire or a current team member that's going to be selling that structure, it's pretty challenging and difficult to do. A perfect example of this is like, what do we do for quoting? If you guys have heard me talk on like Bruce and Steven's podcast or anything, we talk about the old quote and hope, where we take it out of Printavo, the quote, and we just ship it over to them and we wait and hope that they are going to say yes and we get the opportunity. My recommendation is if we're putting time into understanding their needs and we're building a quote for them, they should be able to give us 5 minutes to review the quote, talk about what we're putting together for them, why we put it together, the value that our clients see in doing business with us, and answer any questions that they might have as we go forward. I would never just blindly email a quote over. If any of my sales team members would ever do that, I'd be like, why did you just waste your time? You're just going to blindly send over a quote. If you have a current customer that has been doing business like this with you for years, obviously that's fine. But for new customer referrals and for net new opportunities, why not take a few extra minutes, put a 3-slide deck together. First slide, here's what we uncovered in the initial call with you and what you said were your challenges or your concerns and what you were looking for in a print partner. And guess what? Here's the alignment to what we provide our clients. Our clients tell us that we provide quality products at a quick turnaround time, at a fair price, and they really like the level of communication and customer service we provide. I'm communicating that before I provide the quote. Then I'm providing the quote, here's the price. How do you feel about what you just saw? Can we move forward with this? Any questions? What can I help with? That whole conversation will literally take no more than 5 minutes, but now you've got a leg up because your competitors in the space aren't doing that. They're shipping over a quote and hoping that they get it. That's part of a process. That's part of a script. Using consistent language throughout the process is super critical. For example, when I'm doing a needs analysis or a discovery, trying to understand what this client needs, most shops do a really good job with technical-based discovery. Sizes, quantities, colors, logo placement, et cetera, we know what we need to quote. Most shops do a really poor job with business-based discovery. Help me understand why you're going to partner with a shop. Talk to me about who else you've used in the past. Who besides yourself is involved in the decision-making process? What's the timeline for you making this decision? All those things are going to be really critical for you to understand how you need to earn the business. So we need to ask those questions. And without putting together a good initial conversation, a good initial script that says, here's what we're going to discover, here's how we're going to portray the value of our organization and what we do and what we provide, and then here's how we're going to set next steps. It's really hard to do that without putting a process in place and then putting scripts in place to follow it up.
So what do you feel about the action? Everyone has a website and generates their own sales. They go to your website, they fill out a quote, you don't have to deal with them, it's kind of easier. What do you feel about that versus outside?
Yeah, inbound lead form, they fill it out on their website. We've got all this information about the technical details of the quote. What do? Do we just fill out a quote and email it to them? I mean, my opinion would be, we've got this inbound opportunity. I don't know if they're looking at other shops. I don't know if they were a customer referral unless we have that in our field. I don't really know a lot about that customer. My recommendation is give them a quick call. Hey, got this information. Thanks for filling out that lead form. And as quick as you can get back to them, the better, right? Here's what I uncovered. I've got enough to quote. I just got a couple quick questions about like your business, who you've used before. I want to make sure that we're putting together the right recommendation for you. Ask some of those business-based discovery questions. And then before you hang up the phone, hey, I can have this done for you likely in 2 hours or by tomorrow morning. Can we schedule just a quick 5-minute call to review this? You're going to have some questions. I'm likely going to have some follow-up questions as well. This will be way more efficient if we can jump on a call together or if I can come to your business and walk through this real quick with you. Let's get that scheduled now before we get off the phone.
Does that sound like a very important customer? I'm assuming half the customers go to the website like 9 times a day.
If they don't have time to see a quote from you, is it worth your time sending that quote to them? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is in certain situations.
Super quick story that I think kind of ties this together because it just happened a few weeks ago. A friend of mine was ordering a few thousand shirts for their organization. I'm not going to say who, but a Printavo customer was doing the printing. The shirt that they ordered was a cheap shirt, and they order the shirts every year. It's not a great shirt. They never wear it. It winds up in the dustbin. So I said, why do you keep wasting money on something that the people aren't going to wear? Get better value, spend more money, and the people are going to wear it all the time. Not only did that drive up the initial order, 2 weeks later they ordered more because the people liked it.
Because they saw the value of it.
So that extra, it came from me, but that's like a really strong lesson to learn. Just ask that question, what's it for? Do you want people to enjoy what they're wearing? And that increases the initial sale, then we're really within a couple weeks.
I love it. And that's situational, right? There could be situations where it doesn't make sense. Like, let's just ship over, building the quote's gonna take 5 minutes. We're probably not gonna win it anyways, let's do it. But in my opinion, like, let's put time and effort into like actually activating that and talking to them.
What kind of effort do you put into an email that comes in that has 5 other shops CC'd? Like,
God, what a horrible process. That's a delete. That's a delete.
That's how
I mean,
I'm just curious.
I don't know. If there's 5 other people CC'd, maybe you're deleting it. Maybe you're actually putting a call into them and saying, hey, I saw you add all these shops on here. I want to understand really what you're looking for in a print shop partnership. Like, what can we do to earn your business? And if they can give you insight, a lot of the other shops probably aren't doing that. They're either hitting delete or they're shipping off a quote, right?
Pick up the phone and call them because you're probably going to be the only one to do it.
100%. Pick up the phone. Yep. We're at time. My contact information's up here. I'll throw a stack of business cards up there too. I love talking about this stuff. So if anyone wants to chat further, I'm happy to dive into more sales strategy with y'all. Thank you very much for the time.